Okay, welcome everybody to the September 16th, 2020 Octant community meeting. We're back from a break from last week. About half the team was out last week, so we just postponed and canceled, not postponed, it happens every week. Canceled it and decided we would come back this week. So we've got a few things that we want to talk about today. I'm going to go over kind of what our upcoming plan is for O.16. I think Sam was wanting to have a discussion about some features for quotas and limit range. And then either Sam or Milan, probably Milan, I think this one came up in an issue he was looking at to talk about the navigation height of the viewport. So with that, we'll get started. So O.16, it's coming. With a lot of the team being out last week, we weren't able to make a whole lot of progress on things and moving that forward. But this week, things are looking pretty good. We have some outstanding issues that we want to get wrapped up before that gets pushed out. I think likely this 1305, which is the modal component from Sam. There is this one from Brian, which is 1341. I'm not sure that this will go into O.16. This one here is we have the slider view that's currently in Octant, which extends up from the bottom. It didn't get a whole lot of use. We had planned to use it for some various things. We briefly used it for terminal windows. Brian has refactored it into being a little bit more of a useful component and not so dependent on needing content. So now there's just this more generic bottom panel that then you can place custom content into, similar to like, think of flex layouts within Octant where you can just kind of pack in any content that you want. That PR is kind of turning that bottom area into essentially a tabbed area for flex layouts, and it will make it generally more useful. The idea is that we're going to be showing initially error messages and events in that area, which is needed to get us able to start releasing Octant as a application instead of as a terminal app. So the other thing that we want to, will maybe Milan can maybe add some more to this, but there is a new view for a resource viewer that we are going to be putting behind a feature flag, and I think that'll go into this O.16. Is Milan?
I actually don't think that should go in O.16.
Okay, all right. We're going to hold that one back. So
yeah, it's basically going to be feature flag for the new resource viewer, but getting in a state where it's useful and it's good to compare, it still requires a little bit of work, especially if we change the interfaces on the backend side. So
okay,
it's going to be a bit of effort to put that in.
Yep, that sounds good. So yeah, so really the only thing we're kind of waiting on here is the modal and probably this fixed label and selector tooltip positioning. So the release should be going out here very soon. This week seems very, very reasonable for a timeline. So we're Wednesday now. I imagine I can't foresee us not being able to get something out tomorrow or Friday. We're not a service, so we don't care about releasing stuff on Fridays. It's perfectly fine. Is there anything that I missed from I know we covered, so I'll go down here. Just so last week we covered kind of what we were blocking and what we were expecting, which was the loading indicator, some component flicker. We've addressed those. So those things are, yeah, I would say they're addressed. They're not in their final form, but they are addressed with respect to what we were encountering during our testing and during some of the new updates we made. I think those things are fixed. So is there anything that I'm missing for the O.16 that we're waiting on? All right. I take that that we have good coverage there. So the next thing is a feature to add quotas limit ranges for each namespace. I believe Sam added this after a comment in our Slack about this. So did you want to take it, Sam?
Yeah, I can add some color to this. So this is really just more about figuring out what that's going to look like, because currently we just display these. And so if you go to namespaces and then you just click on a given namespace, you see the resource limits and the resource quotas. I'll probably have to do some research on whether or not these are actually first class objects in Kubernetes. I don't know off the top of my head. But we would have them listed out somewhere, and I'm not sure if it should just be create another action or it should be another form, because now we're starting to develop these patterns where we have different ways of creating objects, and so this is something that we should start to think about. So I don't imagine this is something that's very difficult to do. I think it's something that we could probably put in for the next release, not the one that's coming out this week, but the one after that. But moving forward, this might be something we should think about if we want to create, whether we're just creating more actions or we're starting to use this form pattern to generate something, which really is still an action behind the scenes now that I think about it a little bit more. But I think this is just more of a discussion on, or maybe I should just write an issue on exactly what that should look like. I think that's what I'm getting at here. This should be written as an issue, and we can have solid notes and screenshots on what this concretely should be.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for this to be something that's part of core Octant. And yeah, I think creating an issue to figure out what that looks like is a great idea.
Yeah, I don't have anything else for that one, but I also wrote the idea navigation to take up the entire height of viewport. So if we're moving on, I can also add some words to that one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so this one was just more of a random thought that I had the other day, but currently on the top left corner of Octant, we have the logo and Octant, and I tend to use that a lot just to navigate back to overview, not so much as that it's like representative of anything, but then I figured it might just be bad UI, like that's what the quick switcher is for, I'd assume, or maybe even just having the side nav to do it, because right now it's also really weird. If you click that top left button, it actually loads the page twice. It loads back to the root path, and then it tries to go to overview namespace and then your default namespace. So it's not something that's great to begin with, but also I think like when you're in an application, like they know it's Octant and the logo's already there. So it's like free space that we're not totally using. And I could totally see like a version of Octant where we just have that expandable navigation take up the entire left side. So now we kind of get a little bit more space for free, and we just have a slightly less busy page, and we figure out a better way to handle how to head back to that initial overview page.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that, so one of the things that came up last time Brian and I were talking is that if you look at vCenter and vSphere as an example of how they do their layouts, it's interesting because they have a similar thing where they have this menu that looks like this, but what they like when you click, for example, like say I clicked on workloads, right? This left nav would stay minimized, and then what we currently nest, or in this case what we fly out, would actually come out and be part of there'd be like another menu, you know, like an unfolding a telescope kind of like. And the nice thing about that pattern is that then we get away from having to worry about like all of this height, like as modules get added and things get added in here. There's not this, because all of that height is going to go to the next panel, right? And so we could play with that idea as well when we're looking at like what should this kind of root navigation do, or how should it be visualized?
Right. I actually spent a good part of this morning chatting with Brian about this. And I mean, I'm kind of torn on this. I really like the simplicity of current approach. So, you know, the idea is that the way that navigation works currently, basically for advanced users, which is the compressed view like that, it just tries to get away from you, you know, so it doesn't take too much space. And I was looking at this vSphere. Currently, navigation, when you open that second level, it gets really busy. Number one, and number two, it just uses so much of the space. I counted on a screenshot that Brian sent me about 50 different buttons that you can click at a time, which can be really overwhelming. So yeah. It's really hard to, I mean, this is a really tricky problem to have, because we have so many options, and to find a solution that works really well and it doesn't take too much space and it's functional. It's good for both advanced user and novice users. So I definitely think it's time to rethink that navigation. So, you know, I think I would call openly for all, you know, ideas and suggestions like this one that Sam just mentioned. It's I think, a really good one. So maybe we should try to figure out what are the problems we're trying to solve, what are the problems of the current navigation. If you start with that and try to, you know, find the best ways to approach that and to solve them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree that it's not a straightforward problem. I think it's going to take some exploration. Right. And I wonder if we can, you know, Sam mentioned the quick switcher, and I was thinking, like, so we have that, I had to look up what it was. We have the quick switcher, and I'm wondering, like, is it too like, should we like yeah, you can get to it through a key command, but also maybe when you click on the icon you get the quick switcher.
That's an interesting idea.
Like, because I'm thinking, like, if I am, you know, if I just want to go back to the main, like we make whatever the default. So like right now you click on this and yeah, it goes to overview names. It goes to whatever namespace you have selected, and it goes to the namespace overview. So if we could make it so that the namespace overview is the first option in the quick switcher, it also would expose the quick switcher to more people. So right now it's kind of hidden. I know we did just recently add in like this list of keyboard shortcuts, which will help people find it. I don't know. That's just an idea. I don't know. I don't even know if it's a good one, but it's an idea.
Great. I think the biggest problem with current navigation is if we have too many items, they get off the screen. Especially that's going to be important now because we have a lot of plugins. And there are a few different ways to solve that. One of them might be, you know, if you look at the Slack, for example, they added that left area where you can kind of check the groups. So imagine left from our icons is another tiny vertical menu that gives you 3 or 4 icons. The top one might be, you know, in cluster operation, the second one cluster based, and plugins, and so on. So that will limit the total number of items in the whole navigation, and that will kind of give us way more space and reduce the clutter a little bit. So that is one thing I was thinking about. The other way to solve the problem with too many items is at the very bottom, we can add something like show more or show less. And that will open a whole other set of, it's almost like a floating menu. If you click on show more, everything that's missing will show up as as a floating menu or something like that. So just some of the ideas I was considering.
Yeah, I mean, I think this area is ripe for exploration. Like we can try some different things, and the interesting thing about navigation is that it's a pretty it's one of those things where it's like it's a non-obvious solution, but the non-solutions are very obvious. Like when you try something new, you're like, no, that's not it. You're like, you know, pretty immediately that way of doing something, like if you're trying to tweak navigation, isn't going to work. And so I think we can try to maybe solicit some feedback from the community,
Absolutely.
and yeah, maybe I'll put a tweet out through the Project Octant Twitter handle, and try to get some, like, we'll create an issue around navigation and see if we can get some people engaged. And so I think there's a lot of people who care about this, because an issue for this gets opened, I think, every couple weeks we see, or every maybe month we see a new issue of like it clips, or I can't see it, or the menu's too long, whatever. And so maybe getting some of those people who are opening the issue to toss some ideas out might help us solve this problem in a nice way. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's all we have on the agenda. Is there any open Q&A that people wanted to explore before we call it? This is a relatively short one, so gives people some time back. All right, well, thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you next week.